A simple letter from Elon Musk's son made Trump do the unthinkable. The morning was unusually silent. Outside the White House, a low mist hung over the lawn like breath held too long. Inside the Oval Office glowed with filtered sunlight, softened by white drapes that swayed gently from the spring breeze, slipping through a cracked window. Donald Trump stood alone. His frame, larger than memory, yet older than before, cast a heavy silhouette against the presidential seal rug. The tweets were gone now. The headlines had faded. All that remained were echoes, voices from televised debates, applause from rallies, the silent sting of betrayal. He stared at the wooden box on his desk. It was carved from cedar weathered by time. A single word was etched on the lid in a child's hand: friends. He hadn't opened it in years. A knock. A soft one. The kind that asked, not demanded. "Come in," Trump said, voice brittle. The door opened just wide enough for a staffer to step halfway through. A young woman barely out of college in a navy skirt and press badge. "Sir, he's here." Trump didn't look up. Alone. "Yes, sir. Just him and his son." Trump closed his eyes. Elon Musk. They hadn't spoken face to face since the Twitter exchange that broke the internet. The one that spilled anger, accusation, and memes across every screen in America. Tech tyrant. Washed up puppet. Billionaire babysitter. Trump had tweeted, Musk had subtweeted. Commentators took sides. Nothing was settled, only severed. And now he was here. Trump nodded once. The staffer vanished. Moments later, the door opened wider. Elon Musk walked in with the careful steps of someone entering sacred ground. Dressed in a dark suit, his hair neatly brushed, he looked more like a diplomat than a disruptor. In his left hand, a flat folder. In his right, the small hand of his 5-year-old son. "Hello, Donald," Elon said. Trump looked at the child. The boy had clear eyes, a messy mop of hair, and a rock in his pocket. He smiled. "I'm X," he said simply. Trump managed a nod. The room stretched between them like a courtroom. "I didn't come here to fight," Elon began, placing the folder gently on the edge of the desk. This is just something for you, something personal." Trump didn't speak. Elon opened the folder. Inside were drawings, childlike yet thoughtful. Rockets, houses, bridges. At the bottom of one, scrawled in blue crayon, "Build together." "They're from X," Elon said. The boy smiled again and handed Trump a second item, a smooth, palm-sized stone. On it, with shaky letters in red marker, one word: peace. Trump stared at it. A paperweight, a message, a dare. "I know we've both said things," Elon said carefully, "but the world doesn't need another feud. It needs a moment, a turning point. We used to be allies once. Maybe not in everything, but in belief and possibility." Trump's fingers traced the edges of the stone. Elon gestured toward the wooden box. "I saw it in an old photo," he said. "You once said it held your best memories. I thought maybe it should hold something new too." Trump didn't answer. Not yet. He rose from the chair. The child stepped back slightly. Trump towered over him, but the boy didn't flinch. He reached into his pocket again and pulled out a small envelope. "It's for you," X said. "You don't have to read it now." Trump took it with careful hands. He glanced at Elon. Their eyes locked, not in challenge but in recognition. Two different paths, one crossroads. Then quietly, "Walk with me." Trump led them through the hallway, past portraits and flags to the rose garden. Spring had begun to bloom cautiously. The bushes were full of promise. X stopped before a rose bush and bent down. He placed the stone under its base. "This way it grows with something true," he said. Trump didn't move. His eyes stayed on the stone, then drifted to the envelope in his hand. The paper was warm, the ink barely dry. He didn't open it. Not yet. He simply stood there in the silence of spring, with a billionaire peacemaker on one side and a 5-year-old messenger on the other. And for the first time in a long time, he said nothing at all. Back in the Oval Office, Trump sat in his chair, the letter from X still unopened in his palm. The room had not changed yet. Somehow everything had. The folder with the drawings still rested where Elon had left it. The word peace still echoed in his mind like a whispered refrain. With a slow breath, Trump tore open the envelope. Inside was a folded piece of white paper, thick and uneven school-quality paper, probably torn from a sketch pad. Written in colorful markers, the message was simple. Dear Mr. Trump, my daddy said you were once friends. I hope you can be again. I think people forget to say sorry because they're scared. I was scared when I broke Mommy's vase, but I said sorry, and now she hugs me more. You were a president. That's a big job. I want to be one too. I hope we can build something if you want. Love. X. Trump read it twice, a third time. Then he set it beside the folder on the desk. For a long moment he said nothing. Then he reached for the box. The cedar lid creaked open. Dust motes danced in the filtered sunlight as he pulled out old photographs. One by one, his inauguration crowd. Him with Reagan's statue. A framed tweet, once autographed by Sean Hannity. Then deeper personal ones. Ivanka as a toddler in a tiara. Eric on a pony. Barron's kindergarten diploma. And at the very bottom, folded into the back corner, a photograph. Him and Elon Musk. Back in 2017. Elon looked younger then. Eyes sharper, voice unfiltered. Trump, in contrast, looked exuberant. Arms around each other in front of the SpaceX rocket prototype, both smiling. Not forced smiles, real ones. Shared victory in something larger than politics. He ran a thumb across the image. Somewhere outside the office a leaf blower hummed. A child laughed in the rose garden. Trump closed his eyes. Memory collided with regret, and for a moment silence returned. He pulled out a blank note card. The White House crest, embossed in gold, glinted faintly as he picked up a pen. But he didn't write. Not yet. Later that afternoon, Trump walked alone, down a quieter corridor, past the Roosevelt Room, past the closed press doors. He found Elon waiting in a side salon, a modest room, with 2 armchairs, a globe, and a silent television mounted in the corner. The boy was gone, taken outside perhaps by Secret Service for lemonade or distraction. It was just the 2 of them now. Elon stood. You read it. Trump nodded. I did. Elon looked relieved. Then he sat again. Trump did not. It's strange, Trump said slowly, choosing each word. To have someone your age remind you of something your own generation forgot. Elon tilted his head. What's that? Trump's jaw tightened, then loosened. Grace. The 2 men sat in the silence that followed. I didn't come here with a press kit, Elon said. There's no tweet waiting, no AI video scheduled, no narrative to control. I came because I'm tired. Trump finally sat across from him. You tired, he said with half a smile. You're a machine. No, Elon replied. Just a father. And a man trying to make peace with his past. Trump tapped the armrest. So what's next? Elon leaned forward, elbows on knees. I think we do nothing, he said. No joint statement, no handshake for the cameras. Let people wonder, let them imagine that silence means growth, not defeat. Trump chuckled softly. You sound like a monk. Maybe, Elon said, or maybe just someone who's learned that volume isn't the same as strength. Trump's eyes went to the TV. Static glitched faintly on the screen. No sound, no visuals, just a black mirror reflecting the room. I kept a photo, he said suddenly. Elon looked at him. From SpaceX, back when you still thought I was interesting. You still are, Elon replied. But interest is different than trust. Trump nodded. So let's build that again. Elon reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a thin slip of card. On it was a sketch, a redesign of a civic monument, unfinished. A blending of steel and garden. I've had this for months, Elon said. A project called Together, not commercial, just symbolic. It needs a home. Trump looked at it. The rose garden. Elon nodded. Maybe, if you're willing. Trump didn't answer, but he didn't refuse. Instead he stood. I'll see you out, he said. The 2 men walked side by side, past the West Wing's soft bustle, past eyes that pretended not to watch. They stepped outside once more. The air was cooler now. X was waiting under the blooming dogwood. He ran to Elon's side, then looked up at Trump. Did you read it? Trump crouched to his level. I did. You wrote it well. Thanks, X said. I practiced. Trump nodded. Then almost reluctantly, he held out the folded photo of SpaceX, the one from his box. I think this belongs to both of us, he said. Maybe you can hold on to it, for now. X took it solemnly. Then without ceremony they parted. Trump turned back toward the White House. In his coat pocket was the sketch of a monument, and on his mind the sentence from a child. I was scared when I broke Mommy's vase, but I said sorry, and now she hugs me more. The words haunted him gently, and somewhere deep inside something cracked, but not in a way that hurt, in a way that let the light in. Evening came quietly to the White House. A golden hue stretched long across the rose garden, brushing the windows with a fading amber warmth. Inside, the light was softer now, dimmed, but not dark. In a quiet sitting room just off the east colonnade, Trump sat alone. The sketch Elon had given him was on the coffee table next to a coaster and an untouched glass of water. He stared at it, not just looking, but searching. The drawing was simple. A circular monument open to the sky, ringed with benches and framed by climbing roses. At its center, a smooth column that bore no names, just open space. Blank, but not empty. He picked it up. The paper was heavy textured, expensive. The pencil strokes were clean, deliberate. There was intent in every line. Together. That was the name Elon had given it. Not unity, not hope, not something poetic or abstract, just together. The simplicity nagged at him. A knock at the door. It was the aide again. "Sir, Mr. Musk is in the conservatory. He's requested your company if you're available." Trump looked at the drawing again. He folded it carefully, slid it into his breast pocket, and stood. "I'm available." The conservatory was rarely used. Once a favorite of Melania's, it now sat mostly idle. The long windows framed the garden in shadows. Inside it smelled faintly of soil and lemon oil. Elon stood by the window, looking out at the horizon where the last edge of daylight met the city skyline. In his hands, the folder Trump had left behind. "You left this," he said without turning. "I didn't forget it," Trump replied. Elon finally turned. "Then why?" Trump walked slowly into the room. "Because I needed to see if you would pick it up." Elon smiled faintly. Test passed. Trump didn't answer. Instead, he pointed to the sketch. "This isn't just about peace, is it?" "No," Elon said. "It's about memory." He opened the folder and pulled out a second drawing, one he hadn't shown before. It was similar to the first, but in this version, the central pillar was replaced by a sculpture. A child standing on tiptoe, reaching for a suspended globe. Trump stared. "That's X," Elon said, "or what he represents." Trump took a seat. "You want to build this here?" "I do." "In the rose garden?" "Yes." Trump exhaled through his nose. He glanced out the window. "There are rules, traditions. There are also moments," Elon replied. "Moments that deserve new traditions." Trump tapped his knee. "This won't be popular." Elon shrugged. Neither was the moon landing. The two sat in a stillness that was not awkward, but deliberate. A space cleared for thought. "You once told me," Trump said slowly, "that if you could do one thing, just one thing before you died, it wouldn't be colonizing Mars or inventing immortality." Elon nodded. "I remember. You said it would be making sure your kids grew up in a world where truth didn't feel like a fight." Elon looked at him surprised. "You remembered that?" Trump nodded. "I didn't remember it until today." He stood and walked to the window. The stone X had placed earlier glinted faintly beneath the rose bush. Trump looked at Elon. "What's your real goal here?" "To prove we can still choose grace," Elon said. "Even after everything." "And what do I get in return?" Elon was silent for a moment. Then, "You get to be remembered as the man who said yes." Later that night, in the private dining room, Trump took a red marker from his desk drawer. He turned the photo of him and Elon over, and on the back he wrote, "Before the noise, before the split, we believed, let's remember." He placed it in the wooden box. Then he added the letter from X. He stared at the lid for a long time before closing it. The word friends stared back at him, gentle and unblinking. Outside, the air was still. The city slept. But in the rose garden, something unseen had shifted. But part 3 did not end with the night. At 11:47 p.m., unable to sleep, Trump stepped back outside. He wore a coat now, but no tie. The stone path was cool beneath his shoes. The rose garden, dimly lit by amber lamps, shimmered with dew. He walked alone to the place where X had placed the stone. Kneeling was not something Trump did easily, but he did. He reached for the stone, not to move it, but to steady himself beside it. Behind him, a quiet voice. "Hard to sleep." "Elon." Trump didn't look up. "Harder to stay angry than it used to be." Elon stood a respectful distance behind. "That's progress." Trump turned his head slightly. "You always believed in that progress." "I still do. But not the noisy kind, not the kind on charts, the kind that leaves room for people to grow back into each other. Trump stood slowly. "You're serious about this monument?" "I am." "I'll need time, but—" He paused. "You might get your answer sooner than you think." The two men stood beneath the stars side by side again, not as allies, not yet as friends, but as something braver. Possible. The morning after was unhurried. The White House awoke to birdsong and sunlight bleeding through high glass panes. Outside, the rose garden glistened from overnight dew, its flowers tilting upward, already reaching. It was quiet but not empty. It was expectant. Trump stood again at the edge of the garden path. He wore a darker suit today. Not for the cameras, there weren't any yet, but because some days demanded gravity. Today felt like one of them. The same aide from yesterday approached. "Sir, Mr. Musk is waiting by the east portico." Trump nodded. "Bring him here." He waited by the rose bush, the one now marking a stone that read, "Peace." It was still there, untouched like sacred ground. Elon arrived silently. His son wasn't with him this time. "Morning," he said. His tone was gentler today. Trump didn't answer right away. He gestured to a bench under the pergola. They sat. "What happens now?" Elon asked. Trump looked around. "Now nothing flashy. We talk." And so they did. Not about monuments. Not about architecture or blueprints or press optics. They talked about legacy. They talked about being misquoted, misunderstood, mythologized. About the loneliness that grows after power fades. About children and what they ask before sleep. About cities that felt less like homes and more like digital battlegrounds. "I used to think cameras gave clarity," Trump said. "But all they ever did was capture the version people wanted to see." "I used to think silence was a flaw," Elon responded. "Now I know it's a tool, maybe the sharpest one we've got." Trump smiled, not sarcastically, not smugly, just enough to crease his eyes. "I never told anyone this," he said. "But the day before I left office, I came out here. Alone. I stood right where X placed that stone. I didn't say anything, didn't pray, didn't tweet, just stood." "Did it help?" Elon asked. "No," Trump said, "but it reminded me I could still stand." There was a long pause. Then Trump asked why a child— Elon raised a brow. "In the sculpture. Why a child reaching for the globe?" Elon exhaled slowly. "Because they don't see borders yet. They just see shape, roundness, wholeness." Trump looked at the sketch again, now lying between them. "It's naive. It's honest," Elon replied. Trump tilted his head, conceding silently. "I don't know if I'm ready to be a symbol of unity," Trump said. "There are people who'd hate me just for sitting on this bench beside you." "There always will be," Elon said. "But maybe we stop worrying who's watching and just ask who's willing." Trump looked at the garden. A breeze moved through it like a whisper. "Then maybe," he said slowly, "it's not about being liked anymore." "No," Elon said, "it's about being useful." They sat until the breeze stilled. Eventually Trump stood. "You said you didn't want a statement. But maybe we don't need a monument either. Maybe we just need this story to be told without spin, without slogans." Elon stood too. "Then let's tell it, quietly but clearly." Trump nodded. "And let's not wait too long." The two men walked back toward the building, leaving the stone where it was leaving the sketch on the bench. But something unspoken remained behind them. The agreement to remember. They paused just before reaching the steps. The White House behind them, now bathed in golden light. A breeze stirred again. Trump turned slightly. "You know," he said, "this could have happened years ago." Elon nodded. "It didn't, but it's happening now." Trump considered this, then said, "It might have saved something back then." "It still can," Elon answered. They walked back inside, but neither of them noticed the child had returned. X stood hidden in the hedges, watching, clutching a sketch pad, not spying, witnessing. And as the breeze danced again over the rose bush, the stone shifted just slightly, settling deeper into the earth. The clock in the west wing ticked past noon. Trump sat in the Roosevelt room alone. On the table in front of him lay 2 sheets of paper, one blank, one old. The blank one was thick, embossed with the presidential seal. The old one was the photo, him and Elon, 2017, SpaceX. He flipped the photo over, reading the words he'd scrawled days earlier. "Before the noise, before the split, we believed, let's remember." He picked up the pen. For a man known for speaking often, Writing felt different, more permanent, less defensive. There was something in the act of handwriting, of slow and deliberate motion, that imposed a kind of truth few microphones could preserve. It forced thought. It demanded presence. He began with a single sentence. "This is not a statement. This is a reminder." He paused, then wrote more. It was not long, not elaborate. It didn't mention policy or party. It didn't traffic in nostalgia or performative humility. It mentioned memory. It mentioned children. It acknowledged silence not as absence, but as presence, a kind of reverence for moments too large for slogans. It ended with one word: build. He signed it, then folded it into the envelope. In the East Room, Elon waited. No press had been summoned. No aides hovered with whispering radios or iPads. Only X was there, seated quietly in the front row, with a crayon in hand, his legs dangling from a plush chair that once held senators and heads of state. Elon stood near the podium, but did not speak. He waited for Trump, not the spectacle, not the persona, but the man. When the door opened, the room shifted, not dramatically, just subtly, as if the air itself had adjusted in recognition. Trump entered without entourage. No tie, no flag pin, just him. He walked straight to Elon and handed him the envelope. "I want you to read it," he said, "but not now. Later, after this." Elon accepted it with a nod, his eyes not moving from Trump's. Trump turned to X. "Ready?" The boy smiled. "I brought something." He held up a new drawing, a mix of red, blue, green, a White House with a heart on the roof. Beside it, 3 stick figures, one tall with orange hair, one with spiky hair, one small holding both their hands. "That us?" Trump asked. X nodded with confidence only children carry. Trump sat beside him. Elon stayed standing, not out of formality, but because some emotions are best held upright. Then, for the first time, Trump gestured for a White House aide. "Get the garden team. I want them to prepare space, near the bush." "For what, sir?" Trump looked at Elon. "For something that grows." Elon smiled, not the rehearsed media smile, but the real kind. The kind that begins in memory and ends in belief. X clapped once, small and proud. The aide nodded and left, but not before glancing back, eyes wider than duty allowed. They walked again that evening, this time together. Elon, Trump, and X. There were no cameras, no phones, just 3 people walking the path to the garden. X pointed to the stone, still there. Trump crouched beside it. "I think it's where it's supposed to be." Elon knelt as well and placed the folded drawing, X's new one, in a waterproof sleeve, then tucked it gently beneath the bush, careful not to disturb the roots. "A seed," he said, "in paper." Trump didn't argue, he didn't question. For once he just accepted. They stood there not talking. There were no grand gestures, no choreographed movements, just presence. Then X pulled something from his jacket, another envelope. "This one's for the world," he said. "What's in it?" Elon asked. "Just a picture." He gave it to Trump. Trump held it up to the light, squinting slightly in the fading daylight. It was the same sketch, but this one had 4 stick figures. A woman had joined them. Trump smiled. "Who's she?" X shrugged. "Maybe someone watching." They laughed softly. Not the performative chuckles of press conferences or dinners, just a genuine shared sound. Inside, back in the West Wing, Trump placed the envelope labeled "For the World" into the wooden box. He moved aside an old campaign button, a faded handwritten slogan, and made room for it. He closed the lid. "Friends," it still read. But now beneath that word the box held more than memory. It held a beginning, and somewhere out in the garden, beneath the whispering roses and the fading sun, a small stone with one word continued to rest unchanged, but never unimportant: peace. The press didn't find out until 3 days later. By then the event had already happened, the gestures already made, the documents already sealed. There were no leaked live streams, no accidental mic captures, no behind-the-scenes gotcha moments to devour. All that remained was a single photo released without a caption: Trump and Elon Musk standing side by side in the rose garden, both looking down not at the cameras, but at something between them. Between them, just out of frame, was a boy, a stone, and a seed. What the world would not see was the letter. It was X who insisted it be read aloud, once and only once, in the garden where it was written. A small wooden podium was brought out, not the usual iron platform, Not the official White House press stand, just a basic garden lectern, crafted by a maintenance worker who usually fixed railings and lamps. Elon stood nearby. Trump was seated this time not in power but in presence. And X, holding the envelope with care that rivaled any National Archive custodian, stepped up to the podium. His hands were small, the paper large in them, but he cleared his throat with a seriousness that hushed even the wind. Then slowly, carefully he read, "Dear world, sometimes big people forget little things, like how to listen or how to wait or how to hold hands when it's not easy. They remember big things like rules and speeches and who wins, but not small things like saying sorry, like asking nicely, like putting a drawing in the ground and believing it will grow. I'm not a president. I'm just a kid. But I know when someone says sorry and when someone tries. I saw two people try. That's why I made the stone. That's why I put it here. The rose garden isn't just for flowers. It's for peace. I think peace is something you plant, not something you win. This is my letter. This is my wish. Be friends again. Love. X." Silence held the garden when he finished. Not heavy silence, sacred silence. The kind that doesn't demand applause or interpretation, it simply asks to be felt. Trump stood and walked to the boy. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. He placed a hand gently on X's shoulder, and for the first time in days, he looked up not with defiance, not with calculation, but with something else. Vulnerability. A rawness rarely afforded to public men, especially those who once stood at podiums as symbols rather than people. Elon joined them. The three stood like a portrait painted by time, one from the past, one from the future, one from the bridge between. The moment wasn't choreographed. It simply was. The world eventually reacted. It did what it always does. It speculated. It mocked. It praised. It wrote op-eds. It made memes. It questioned timing and sincerity and what it all meant. Some shouted about strategy. Others whispered about change. But some didn't comment. They went outside. They looked at gardens. They asked children what peace meant to them. They bought stones paints and sat quietly in parks, thinking more and speaking less. And one morning, across cities and fields and coastlines, small stones began to appear on doorsteps in parks near schools, with a single word painted on them: peace. They weren't flashy. They weren't political. They didn't ask for attention. They simply rested. And maybe, just maybe, they grew roots. Or perhaps they reminded people that roots already existed. Weeks passed. The rose garden received more foot traffic, but not from tourists. People came and left flowers. Some came just to sit. Others brought drawings, childlike scrawls of hope, taped quietly under benches. Letters began to arrive. Not to the administration, to the garden itself. Addressed to the rose, the bench, to whoever reads. Some contained poems, others apologize. A few came from old veterans who had once walked those grounds in different decades, now writing simply "thank you." One letter, written in delicate script, said, "Only I forgive you." Inside the west wing, the wooden box remained. It still bore the word "friends." But now it held more than the drawing. It held dozens of new letters, folded programs from spontaneous peace vigils, and one bronze pin left by a retired teacher who had walked for 4 days to see the stone. Eventually the archivists came. They cataloged everything: the letter from X, the drawings, the seed packet someone anonymously left beneath the rose bush, a child's shoelace that had been tied around a daisy stem, a ribbon that read, "Try again tomorrow." The box was filed not under executive orders or proclamations, but in a drawer labeled "Personal Correspondence." But the story didn't end there. 2 months later, a small garden was inaugurated in a public school in Minneapolis, then another in Madrid, and yet another outside a library in Nairobi. They called them peace gardens. Some had plaques, most didn't. Some had a stone. All had children. One day, X received a package addressed in crayon handwriting. Inside were 37 stones each, painted by a different child, each bearing a different language's version of the same word, peace. He took them to the rose garden, With Elon and Trump watching, he knelt and added each one in a spiral around the first. No announcement, no fanfare, only intent. An artist from Vermont created a print of the drawing X had left in the box. She gave away thousands. Hospitals, shelters, embassies, walls began to carry a new kind of message. And Trump, now mostly silent on social media, began writing letters. Not political ones, personal ones. Some to children, some to strangers, some just to say I'm listening. The rose garden became less a place of power and more a place of return. And each season, when new roses bloomed, someone no one knew who left a new seed packet beneath the bench. Visitors began leaving offerings. One left a violin string with a note, "Play again." Another a chess pawn. Someone placed a single shoebox with a flashlight inside and wrote on it, "For when it's dark." Peace wasn't declared, it was invited. And though not all accepted and not all believed, enough did. Enough to begin again. It is still called the Rose Garden Letter.